Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Our state recorded just one new case of coronavirus overnight, but Tasmanians are being urged not to become complacent. Health authorities are now asking those on the northwest with even mild symptoms to get tested as they work to get on top of the outbreak there.
A patient here at Burnie's Northwest Regional Hospital, Tasmania's only confirmed case of coronavirus overnight. The case, a man in his 90s, bringing the state's total to 201.
I'm not going to provide an update on his condition other than to observe that coronavirus infection is often a very serious infection in people in their 9th and 10th decade of life.
As work continues to contain the northwest outbreak, health authorities are still investigating how it started, revealing an interim report will be completed in coming days.
We will make sure that we take on board any of the learnings for our system and look at how we can use that across the THS, but then the learnings, I'm sure, can be shared with other jurisdictions.
Now the testing blitz in the region continues. Anyone with even mild symptoms in the northwest is urged to get tested to rule out community transmission. Authorities aiming to undertake hundreds of tests each day.
We want to see more Tasmanians on the northwest coast and on the west coast tested. So please be aware of your symptoms. You don't have to be very unwell.
There's probably going to be several hundred more people in the northwest who've got a bit of a sniffle or a runny nose or a mild cough or sore throat or just a dry itchy throat that's come on quite suddenly. We want you to all go and get tested.
Police presence will remain strong in the area. So far across the state, 10,000 compliance checks have been undertaken, almost half in the northwest. 144 people have been charged or summoned.
We're out there doing the high visibility patrols and the high visibility static checkpoints, which aren't 24 hours a day, but we can be anywhere and you can be expected to be pulled over at any time. 77 people in Tasmania have now recovered from the disease. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
Help is on the way for more than 20,000 temporary visa holders in Tasmania who have so far been unable to access any support payments. The new package offers millions of dollars in funding for those workers left struggling amidst the pandemic. There's also new protection for tenants.
The hospitality shut down, forcing thousands of Tasmanians out of a job. And for those on a temporary visa, unlike colleagues, they've been unable to access government support.
At the moment we are living off our savings, so because also we don't know until when the situation is going to extend, our concern is to run out of money and start to struggle.
But help is on the way. The state government funding a new $3 million package for the 26,000 Tasmanians on the visa, including students, fruit pickers and skilled workers. It includes a one-off payment of $250 or $1,000 for families, and extra funding for organisations offering emergency relief. Also advice for those from overseas who cannot travel home.
I don't agree with the very simple message that temporary visa holders should just go home. As I've said, in many cases they can't, and we need to ensure that we provide support for them.
Temporary migrants who lost their jobs were in a limbo, and I believe this $250 has come as a news of relief to all of them, because with losing your jobs, there has been a lot of uncertainty.
It's not going to stretch far, and this is why it is so important for the federal government to provide job seeker support or job keeper support to these workers too, because this pandemic's going to go on for many months yet.
The Premier also announcing a freeze on residential rent increases until at least June 30.
Rents should be paid unless your financial circumstances have been severely impacted by COVID-19. This is not a passport not to pay rent.
Is a really important measure to take that financial pressure and enormous stress of households which have lost income as a result of a loss of employment or a business.
The plan will be reviewed in coming months to determine if there needs to be an extension. Ruby Kamain, 7 Tasmania News.
2 teenagers are facing charges after being accused of fighting with supermarket staff during a brazen robbery in Launceston. For more on this, let's bring in reporter Tom Johnson. Good evening, Tom. What have police said about the incident?
Good evening, Kim. Well, police are alleging the pair used a shopping basket as a weapon against two staff members here at the Woolworths supermarket on Wellington Street. Police say it happened when staff tried to stop the pair from stealing groceries at around 6 o'clock last night. Now, they managed to flee the store, but police caught up with them a short time later in Invermay. Now, the two people charged are both female. One is in fact a youth. She's 17 years old. The other is 18. We caught up with Inspector Craig Fox. He says while there hasn't been a spike in crime recently, incidents like this one are of course always concerning.
Staff at these locations are very well trained these days. They're entitled to stop them, entitled to ask them the question and to retrieve their property back. My advice is that as soon as the incident turns ugly, is to perhaps walk away.
The two young women have been charged with aggravated robbery. They have been released on bail, but they will be appearing in court sometime soon, Kim.
OK, thanks very much, Tom Johnson there. A young driver has been seriously injured in a crash on the Brooker Highway at Montrose this morning. Police say her car collided with a truck as she attempted to turn onto the busy stretch of road.
This passenger car a crumpled wreckage after colliding with a heavy vehicle on the Brooker Highway.
The Mazda sedan was exiting Duncan Street onto the Brooker Highway at the time when a Mack truck travelling the northerly direction has come in contact.
Emergency services rushed to the scene at Montrose just after 10 a.m. this morning, with extra support required to free the woman from the badly damaged vehicle.
As fire services attended and utilising the jaws of life, we were able to remove the young female from the vehicle.
The 22-year-old woman who was driving the car was taken to hospital with serious injuries. The truck only sustained minor damage, but its driver was also taken to hospital.
The driver of that truck is also in shock and has been sent to hospital also for observations.
Crash investigators were on site into the afternoon. Traffic along the highway was reduced to a crawl, with one lane left open and the speed reduced to 40 kilometres for several hours.
All drivers need to be vigilant when driving on our roads, no matter what time of the day or night and the conditions of the road.
John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
Launceston Airport will soon be out a person in the top job. General Manager Paul Hodgen has been made redundant, finishing up at the end of the month. Mr Hodgen citing the coronavirus pandemic, which has crippled the aviation industry, as a driving force behind the decision. His career spanning nearly 42 years, he's held positions on the boards of the Australian Airports Association, Tourism Industry Council Tasmania and the Launceston Chamber of Commerce. He's been in the General Manager role for nearly 7 years. It's understood the management of the airport will now be overseen by Australian Pacific Airports Corporation in Melbourne. A Tasmanian-led research team has uncovered a concerning development in Antarctica. For the first time, microplastic pollution has been found in a sample of sea ice in what should be a pristine environment.
A microscopic discovery of contaminated Antarctic ice, said to be a first in the field.
As far as we're aware, this is the first knowledge that microplastics are being taken up into the sea ice. So from here on out, now we'll need to look a little harder and see if there's more.
5 IMAS scientists melted and analysed a 120 centimetre long ice core taken from East Antarctica in 2009, the lead researcher saying the results are concerning.
In every litre of water, there was approximately 11 microplastic pieces. So we're expecting now there might be even more. So that's another implication, is seeing if it's been increasing over time.
Microplastics are defined as any plastic particles smaller than 5 millimetres. In Antarctica, pieces have only been previously found in the seawater, known to have serious environmental impacts.
It can help the sea ice melt quicker, and it can also affect how the light is reflecting off the sea ice, so it can have some implications for climate. If the particles are small enough, then biology can be consuming them and could be toxic.
But the data released today has left scientists with more questions than answers.
What are the sources? Where is it coming from? And then how is it getting into the ice? So incorporation techniques, that's a big one. And then lastly, the implications that it has for the ecosystem in Antarctica.
New ice cores are set to be analysed in the near future. Ruby Kamain, 7 Tasmania News.
2 ideas generated in Tasmania could pave the way for revolutionary medical technology. A mobile phone screen sanitiser and a device helping vulnerable babies breathe are in the running for millions of dollars of funding.
CPAP machines are used to provide vital breathing support for premature babies. But if they're put on too tight, they can cause facial scarring. And if they're too loose, they might not be effective.
If a baby is not being supported properly by CPAP, their oxygen levels can fall, and we know that can have long-term consequences.
A collaboration between the Royal Hobart Hospital and the UTAS School of Engineering has aimed to fix that, unveiling plans for a device to provide real-time information and alerts.
To tell the nurses, something's not quite right. Let's do something about it right now, adjust the mask before the more severe consequences would take place.
It's one of 2 inventions submitted to a competition run by MedTech. The other is a portable sanitising gadget for smartphones. They say it can sterilise the device and kill bugs like coronavirus within a few minutes.
Simply put your phone into the device and take it out and it cleans it on its way.
From research studies, phones are 10 times dirtier than a toilet seat and clearly are a source of hospital-acquired infections.
If successful, they'll receive 15 months of mentoring and up to $3 million in funding.
Learn about the process of how can they translate something they do research on to actually become a device or a clinical technology.
John Hunt, 7 Tasmania News.
There's renewed hope for the state's endangered Tasmanian devil population. Vital research is being accelerated into the genomes of the species, which could go a long way into helping fight facial tumour disease.
Tasmanian devil numbers have dropped by 80% in recent years, with colonies almost wiped out in parts of the state. But a collaboration between the University of Sydney and Amazon Web Services is accelerating genomic research for the species.
It allows us to understand genes that have a specific function in animals. And of course, this is really important for devils because, it's the devil's immune system which has to try fight the disease when they get it.
A lack of biodiversity is among numerous issues plaguing the species.
The idea of looking at the genetic diversity of individuals and then crossbreeding populations with genetic differences works in this species, and it works really well.
Tasmanian devils in different parts of the state have varying genetic attributes. So far, crossbreeding has been successful on Maria Island, with increased genetic diversity seen in the population. The research could pave the way for a drop in facial tumour disease, though it's unlikely to be eradicated anytime soon.
If you just breed devils to be able to survive devil facial tumour disease, you don't know what else you're doing to other parts of the genome. So if you breed for that one specific part of the genome, you might do something else down here, which might be important for reproduction, say.
Elizabeth O'Neill, 7 Tasmania News.
It might be lacking the landmarks and the promise of a scallop pie afterwards, but this weekend's Ross Marathon is still taking place, just in many different forms. Runners are devising their own courses to match the one at Ross as closely as possible.
This year's boss of Ross could be crowned as far away as Launceston. Dave Campbell is preparing to run the Ross Marathon on a course he mapped out himself, complete with his own hydration station after the regular run was hamstrung by the pandemic.
I'm going to try and envisage some of the other guys that I know that'll be doing it, other runners, and thinking, well, they'll be on this pace.
Campbell is trying to mimic the course as closely as possible, ironically crossing the ultra-modern Seaport Bridge in place of Ross's 19th century equivalent. There's even the famous hill climb, only a little more forgiving.
It's not quite as bad as the hill at Ross. I mean, anyone who's done that course knows what that's like, especially when you get to the 4th time. But I think it represents the feeling of it.
Even if you're not running at Ross this year, you'll get a little bit of Ross. We've got the picture of the bridge and the church on the medal that we'll be sending out to you guys next week.
Isolated runners will then share their success online. There won't be the buzz of a big crowd at the finish line, but it'll still be sweet.
I'm going to be extremely grateful, I assume, and probably fall on the ground in a heap for just a couple of minutes. But I relish it as well because you relish every marathon you run.
Entries are still open, and unlike a normal marathon, you can start whenever you like over the weekend. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Good evening. It was sunny over the northeast today, a little cloud over the south and just a few isolated showers for the west. Hobart, Burnie and Devonport 16, Launceston and Friendly Beach is the state's high with 18 degrees. Temperatures up to 4 degrees below average. St Helens 17, Smithton, Low Head, Ouse and the Islands 16 today, Strawn 15 and Grove 14. Some low-level cloud in mountain wave patterns over the west, central and south, mostly clear over the northeast. A spiral of frontal cloud is over the central Tasman Sea, low-level cloud over southern WA, not much action elsewhere over the mainland. Tomorrow, a weak trough runs through central Australia. A large high dominates the weather over New South Wales and southern Queensland, another high to the west. Winds west-northwesterly at 10 to 20 knots. They'll increase to 20 to 30 knots in the west before shifting westerly later across the state. Swells at 3.5 metres in western and southern waters. Strong wind warning tomorrow for waters between Southeast Cape and Sandy Cape. Hobart, looking for a top of 20, a possible late shower tomorrow. Late shower 2 for Cygnet, 18 the high and 20 for New Norfolk. Launceston tomorrow, expecting 17 as the top with showers increasing. Showery for Devonport, 17 the high as well. 16 the top for Campbelltown with a late shower. Showers increasing over Burnie, 17 the maximum. Same for Strawn. Smithton showers on the way and increasing, 18 the high. 17 for St Helens with a late shower. Possible late shower for Swansea, 16 the top for Fingal. Friday, a partly cloudy day with a few showers for the west, far south and Bass Strait Islands. A shower on Anzac Day over the west and far south, extending to the north in the afternoon. And on Sunday, rain over the north and west, extending statewide in the morning, but it'll ease later in the day. Further north and 24 and partly cloudy for Perth. Showers developing for Adelaide and later in the day over Melbourne. Sunny day for Canberra, Sydney and Brisbane, and warm over the tropics. Not tropical here though, only 12 degrees in Hobart, partly cloudy, 12 also in Launceston and Devonport. 12's all round, Kim. We'll see you tomorrow night.
We will. Thank you very much, Murph. That's all your news for now. I'll be back with updates later. Thanks for joining us. Good night.